he left quickly. No drama. Almost like a thief caught in the act, only to realize there was nothing worth stealing. A week later, I saw his profile on Bumble. New photo, new bio. Looking for a smart, honest woman, financially stable. I swear I nearly choked on my coffee. He thought he'd hit the jackpot. But in reality, he was digging his own grave. Yes, you heard that right. He married me for money. Only problem, I was poorer than him. Not in the sense of I own fewer Tesla shares, but more like I had a $37 overdraft at Bank of America and a credit card with a $500 limit that was already crying under stress. And him? He wore $1,500 watches, pretended to invest in startups, and thought marrying a woman named Grayson was like signing a contract with Goldman Sachs. Only the last name Grayson was from my grandfather, not a trust fund. And the dress I wore to that ill-fated charity gala? I rented it from Rent the Runway for $89 and returned it the next day with a Prosecco stain on the hem. He wanted a lucrative marriage. But what he got was a lesson. In economics, in psychology, and maybe in criminal law, but more on that later. My name is Marissa Grayson, and if you had told me a year ago that my future husband would Google how to access wife's bank account without her permission, I probably would have just laughed. But now I know, people chasing money rarely chase love. They're after profit, packaging, a label, and when they think they've found it, they get very, very creative. His name is Alexander Murphy, 38 years old, originally from Scottsdale, Arizona. At the time, living in Brooklyn, claiming to work with capital, but always asking if we could split the bill. He had white common projects, sneakers, and an eternal confidence that he was the main character. And in this story, he really was just not in the genre he wanted. We met at a dinner in Soho. I was working at a PR agency, handling branding for a charity that was hosting a rooftop event. It was expensive, beautiful, pointless, everything Manhattan loves. He came up to me with a glass of Pinot Grigio and said, "You look like someone who has connections, taste, and a trust fund." I laughed. He thought he nailed it. Spoiler, I had only taste. Connections temporary until the client canceled. And the trust fund? Apparently the one my parents hoped to set up, but ended up buying a fridge on credit instead. But I played the part, I smiled and didn't correct him. He filled in the rest himself and built his plan. A couple of months later, trips to the Hamptons on my dime, but he forgot his wallet, talks about the future, about investing in the marriage, about how great it was to be partners. And, yes, a ring. Not Tiffany, of course. He said he didn't support corporate greed. Though, as it turned out, he had greed, just his own kind. All along, he convinced me that money isn't everything. And the paradox. The more he said it, the clearer it became that money was his only thing. But you know what's really interesting? He tried so hard to convince me he was generous, noble, investing in the relationship, that he started believing the lie he was telling. And me? I was watching, not rushing. Because when you grew up counting coupons and shopping at Dollar Tree, you learned to spot con artists in expensive suits. He was charming, attractive. But there was something too smooth about him. Like he was constantly rehearsing in front of a mirror. And when he finally said, "I feel like we're ready for the next step," I knew he wasn't talking about love. He was talking about access to a life he dreamed up with my last name, my facade, and what he hoped was in my bank account. But here's the irony. When he realized I wasn't rich, he didn't leave. He got angry. As if I had tricked him. As if he'd bought a box labeled diamonds, only to find honesty, hard work, and student loans inside. He felt like a victim, and I suddenly became a threat. That was the starting point. From then on, the story spiraled downward fast and dramatic, like a bad stock market speculator. Only instead of the S&P chart falling, it was his ego and his morals. But more on that in the next chapter. He wanted the jackpot, but got a shovel and started digging his own hole. And as they say in Brooklyn, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I didn't give him money, but I gave him a lesson. One he'll remember until his next attempt to find a rich and dumb one. My name is Marissa Grayson. I'm 32 years old, and I've been living in New York City for 10 years now. I work in PR branding, events, crisis communications. Sounds glamorous? Maybe. But let's be honest, in Manhattan, even the dogs wear coats, and everything that shines is either rent or an illusion. I'm a modest PR manager who knows how to look like $1 million on a $65 weekly budget. Yes, I can wear a silk blouse, Eras-style earrings, and show up at a cocktail party at Soho House so that people around you start talking softer and clearer. But the truth is, that blouse is vintage from Buffalo Exchange, the earrings are rented through Vivrel, and the shoes were bought on sale from the outnet marked last size. My high school classmates on Facebook think I grew up in Greenwich because I have the last name Grayson and a style like a senator's daughter. But really, I'm from Syracuse, New York, where the snow piles up to your waist in winter and the asphalt melts in summer. My mom worked night shifts as a nurse. My dad left when I was 9. All I inherited was a survival instinct and the ability to force a smile when there's only $12 left in the bank and I still need to buy a Metro card. I live with a roommate, Carla. She's a vet. We share a 2-bedroom apartment in Astoria, Queens. I take the subway because Uber during rush hour is for tourists and those with corporate cards. Every morning, I wake up at 6:30, drink coffee from an old mister. Coffee that ruins the taste of everything, and squeeze onto the F train between a woman with 3 bags and a teenager blasting TikTok videos without headphones. Then I arrive at the office on 5th Avenue, where they expect me to talk, move, and look like I had lunch yesterday with a Vogue editor and will have dinner tonight with someone from the LVMH board. But you know what? I even like it. I love dressing well. I love the art of image. There's something theatrical about it. It's like armor you put on your look, and the world sees you differently. I just didn't expect anyone to mistake the facade for a trust fund. When I met Alex, he saw the image. Well-groomed, confident, from a good family. He didn't ask where I grew up, only which school I went to. He didn't care how I made money, only how my parents invest. He saw my bag and didn't know it was rented for 5 days for $39 through Bag Borrow or Steal. And I didn't want to explain, because explanations often sound like apologies. And I don't apologize for who I've become. I just don't let people think I'm more than I am. If they make assumptions, that's their problem. But Alex, he didn't just assume. He believed, built a plan, and thought he'd hit the jackpot. But really, he walked into a story I'm going to tell. Because a facade can be beautiful, but the real me, that's not a brand, it's armor. And unlike him, I was never hiding anything. He just didn't want to see the truth. We met at a charity gala in Chelsea, an event organized by my agency. The theme was Green Futures. Lots of champagne, a bit of meaning, and a bunch of people pretending to understand sustainable agriculture in Arizona. I wasn't just a guest, I was managing sponsors, seating people, and making sure no one started a political argument by the prosciutto station. And then there he was, Alexander Freeman. Handsome, with a perfect haircut, a golden tan from a recent vacation in Tulum, and that very I studied abroad but don't like to brag about it, although I just did accent. His badge read, Private Investor, Upper East Side. Oh, classic. He came over to the table with business cards where I was standing, pretending I wasn't dying of exhaustion. He said, "How much do you charge for charm per hour?" I smiled. "Less than the rent on this hall, more than you think." He laughed confidently, like he already decided I was an interesting catch. And you know what? He had charm. Too perfect a suit, too well-groomed hands, questions asked with too much confidence. A typical financial predator, but with the manners of a Swiss sommelier. A week after the event, a large bouquet of lilies arrived at my office. No note, just a business card. Alex Freeman. The next day, a text message. Hope the flowers didn't distract you from saving the world again? Lunch at Balthazar? We started dating. At first, casual dinners, then tastings. He took me to places where a salad cost as much as my monthly Metro pass, and I never paid once. He always chose the wine, always knew what to say, and always asked about my family. Are you from New York? Not really. I've lived here for over 10 years. And your parents? They're divorced. Mom's in Syracuse. He nodded, but I could tell something didn't quite fit in his head. I saw him tense when I said, Syracuse. Then I jokingly added, my mom says I look like my grandmother on my dad's side. We had a very old trust fund in the family once. I think it evaporated long ago, along with the family drama. I said it lightly, without any hint, but that's when his interest sparked. There was something attentive in his eyes. He seemed to mentally flag that phrase. From that evening, everything sped up. The next week, theater tickets, then a weekend in Montauk, then dinner with his friends from the fund, where all anyone talked about was taxes and yachts. And he kept saying, you're not like the others. You're real. You're special. Honestly, it flattered me, but I wasn't used to that kind of attention. And something inside warned me, he was moving too fast. Talking too quickly about me being perfect. As if he wasn't talking about me at all, but about a project already launched. I started noticing little things. He asked about my job, but never about my salary. He once said about my apartment in Astoria, well, of course you have investment property there as a backup. I laughed, but I realized he thought I was playing modest. That Astoria was just a cover for a trust fund baby with a sense of irony. And you know what? I didn't deny it. I didn't lie, I just stayed silent. Because he had already painted the picture himself. And I was curious how far he'd go before he realized that the gold mine was just stylishly painted sand. Wanna play the lucky bride? Fine, but know this, I never made any promises. And when the truth surfaces, it won't be my fault. Shall we continue from point 4? Wedding in the bill. Where's the money, Alex? We started dating in October. By mid-December, he already knew the names of all my relatives, even the made-up ones. Alex wasn't just attentive, he was purposeful. He asked questions like I was being interviewed. Not for the role of a wife, but as a candidate for an exclusive club with a family crest on the banner. Your last name, Bennett? It's English, right? Well, probably. My mom's Karen from Syracuse, and she works at a clinic. We never really did genealogy. He nodded, but in his eyes was this message, don't give up, dig deeper. And dig he did as much as he could. Constant talks about wealth. About friends' yachts. About residences, not houses. About our lineage. In my family, they always say we must leave a legacy. Money comes and goes, but the name stays forever. I joked once, my last name Bennett could last forever too if I ever pay off my student loans. He smiled, but nervously. He didn't like it when I reminded him I was ordinary. He liked the image he invented himself, mysterious, reserved in a designer coat with a vintage bag and not a single dollar on my card. Then the proposal. It happened at dinner with his friends, in a Tribeca apartment, where every item was worth more than my annual salary. I thought it was just another glamorous evening. And then, during the toast for success, love, and stability, Alex stood up, pulled out a box, and everyone gasped. Marissa, I know we haven't been together forever, but when you're near, I finally feel like I've found myself. You're smart, you're deep. You're not just a beauty, you're legacy. Will you marry me? Everyone clapped. Champagne flowed like a river. I sat there, paralyzed, wearing a ring that sparkled like a chandelier in the Metropolitan Opera. And I said, yes. Because what else could I say? I was shocked. And a little flattered. Who wouldn't be when a man with money, charm, and investor's instinct chooses you? Me, Marissa Bennett from Astoria, who rents earrings on Rent the Runway and debates between coffee or an Uber ride. But honestly, something inside me twitched. Not fear. More like a chill. Because I knew he was betting on the image. He wanted a wife as an investment. A partner with polish, not gravity. After dinner on the way home, he hugged me in the taxi and whispered, you have no idea how jealous they'll be. You're like the last diamond from a lost collection. And that's when I finally understood. He wasn't marrying me. He was marrying the idea of me. The heiress he'd painted himself I sat in my room, surrounded by cheap IKEA furniture, staring at the ring, thinking, what if I tell the truth, that I have $83 in my savings and student debt from NYU? But I knew he wouldn't hear it. He'd just smile and say, "You're just being modest. That's so family-like." And I decided, fine, let's play. He chose a wife by her looks and last name? Well, let him find out what he really signed up for. The wedding was like a glossy magazine cover, but with a secret. All the paper was debt. We held the ceremony on a Brooklyn loft rooftop overlooking Manhattan with pink champagne and a live jazz band. Everything looked like a Pinterest dream. String lights, cucumber margaritas, banners with our initials. But behind the scenes? The math was completely different. The entire budget was friends I begged for discounts and credit cards that hadn't yet burned out their interest rates. The florist was a college roommate's friend. The DJ was a former colleague who agreed to perform in exchange for an Instagram promo post. Alex? He acted like he'd just won the final round of Shark Tank. Finally, I've found a woman worthy of my lineage. You and me, we're power, we're a brand. He toasted to synergy and future capital, looking at me like a bride, sure, but not like a person, more like a key to a safe. The first few days after the wedding were weird. He didn't talk about love. He talked about investments. On day 3, he sat down next to me with an espresso, his tone like we were in a business meeting. We need to talk about access to your assets. I turned to him, pretending not to understand. Assets? He smirked, almost patronizing. Marissa, come on. I'm not stupid. I know you don't have cash under your mattress, but I'm sure your family has a financial advisor. A trust? A fund? You don't even work with real clients, you're the face. That says a lot. He said it out loud. Not as a joke. Not as a hint. He truly believed I was just hiding my wealth, like a bad rom-com heroine on Netflix. I took a deep breath, sipped my coffee, and smiled, saying, "You know, I need to check with my accountant first. Well, actually, my friend. She does all the Googling for me. I trust her." He smirked, nodded, and left like a man, sensing, soon I'll crack this. He was waiting for the password to my safe. But all he got was an empty lock and a dramatic pause. I felt irritation brewing inside. I didn't marry an investor. I married an illusion of care, politeness, gallantry, and Tuesday flowers. And now, sitting in front of me, was a man who didn't ask how my day went. He asked where my capital was. He started bringing up your family office more often, though I'm not sure he even knew what that meant. Talked about needing to consider real estate. About asset reallocation. He said, "You live modestly. It's respectable, but at some point, we'll need to activate resources." And I just kept playing along. I said things like, "Oh, I forgot the bank password. It's with my mom. I'll message the advisor. He's usually on his yacht, but maybe he'll answer. I think I need to sign some documents in Delaware before I can transfer you a share of an oil company." And every time he believed it. Inside me, 2 parts battled. One wanted to run away right now, take off the ring, and say, "You didn't marry a woman. You married a financial phantom you invented." And the other cold steel, wounded thought, "No, Alex. You wanted the game. Now it's on. But the rules are mine." He found my bank statements accidentally, or maybe not so accidentally. It was a Sunday morning in a regular apartment in Astoria, Queens. I was making pancakes. He was rummaging through a drawer, supposedly looking for a charger. Then silence. Then, "Marissa, what's this?" I turned around, spatula in hand. What? He was holding my Wells Fargo envelope, the printed statement. In red, minus $17.42. He looked at me like I was a criminal, or like a confused little boy promised a toy, but got a box full of salt. What is this nonsense? Where's the money? I put down the spatula, wiped my hands slowly with a towel. And yes, I knew this day would come sooner or later. I just didn't think it would be so comically absurd. This is my checking account, my only one. Welcome to reality." He turned pale. "You're joking, right? This is fake, right? You have Tiffany rings, a Saint Laurent bag. You said you had a family trust." I sat down at the table. "Number, I said I have a friend who has a family trust. And sometimes I borrow things from her. You just didn't listen, Alex. You fantasized." He started pacing nervously, like a stockbroker on the brink of collapse. "So it's all rental? Fakes? Everything?" I shrugged. "Vintage, second-hand. Rent the runway. You'd be surprised how chic you can look on $148 a month if you know where to hunt." He was silent, then stared at me. You're poor?" I raised an eyebrow. "I'm normal. $42,000 a year before taxes. With a roommate, with the subway, with a $19,000 student debt balance. Welcome to America." He stood in my living room in an expensive cashmere sweater and Balenciaga sneakers and looked utterly defeated. Not by love. By an investment that didn't pay off. "You lied to me." I smiled. "Number. You lied to yourself. I just didn't bother to convince you otherwise." He was silent, then suddenly stood up and walked to the bedroom. A minute later, a suitcase. "I'm not going to be with someone who lies. Who hides." "What? Poverty? Or the fact that you wouldn't have married me if you knew the truth?" He didn't answer, just zipped up the suitcase. "I thought we were building a future." "No, Alex, you were building a retirement plan, and I just hoped you loved me." He left quickly. No drama, almost like a thief caught red-handed, but with nothing to take. Irony? He left behind a credit card. In my name. Signed in the prenuptial agreement, where he listed our expected combined income as $850,000. I sat alone, in silence, staring at that very bank statement. -$17. And you know what? Never had a negative number looked so free. 2 weeks after his dramatic exit, I received a plain white envelope in the mail. Legal looking, threatening. Inside a summons. Alex was filing for divorce. The reason stated? Financial misrepresentation. Fraudulent lifestyle. I didn't know whether to laugh or get angry. Seriously? He was actually planning to stand in court and say, "Your Honor, I thought she was wealthy. Turns out she was just a well-dressed pauper." My lawyer, a friend of my roommate, a Cardozo law grad still drowning in student loans, looked at the papers and smirked. "Well, if he wants the judge to make you pay back his disappointment, let him try." We went to court. New York Family Court, Manhattan. A dull gray room smelling of dust and old divorce cases. Alex showed up in Hugo Boss with a $600 hour attorney in tow. Me in a black dress from Poshmark and ballet flats from a Target sale. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s with zero tolerance for drama, scanned the papers. "Mr. Woods, you claim you were misled about your wife's financial status?" He leaned forward. "Yes, Your Honor, she created a facade, acted like someone with capital, mentioned trusts, wore designer clothes. I entered this marriage with certain expectations." The judge squinted. "Did you have a prenuptial agreement? Financial disclosures? Shared assets?" "Well, no. But..." "So you willingly married without legal safeguards, without confirmed investments, correct?" "Well, I thought..." She cut him off. "We don't judge people for disappointment, Mr. Woods, only for breaking the law. Case dismissed." Just like that. 5 minutes? $20,000 in attorney fees down the drain. Plus, my friend billed him for false accusations through the court, another $3,200. You should have seen his face. He left the courtroom looking like he'd lost everything on the stock market, including his self-esteem. A week later, I saw his profile on Bumble. New photo, new bio. Looking for an intelligent, honest woman, financially stable. I swear I nearly choked on my coffee. I wasn't gloating. Well, maybe a little. But deep down, I felt relief. This wasn't just a divorce. It was justice. For greed. For contempt toward those not wrapped in trust funds. Irony? He walked away with nothing. And I with a newfound sense of self-worth. Yes, still in debt. Still taking the subway, not cabs. But with the knowledge that I am worth nothing to someone who values gold, not heart, I decided that the best therapy was humor in open access. I opened TikTok, set my phone on an old tripod, hit rec, and said, "Hi, I'm Marissa from New York. I recently married a gold digger. Spoiler alert, there was no gold, minus $17 in my bank account and plus one divorce. This is the story of how I accidentally scammed a guy without a single cent in my pocket. Sit back and enjoy." In 3 minutes, I posted everything: my rented witchy earrings, the negative balance in my Wells Fargo account, and the moment when Alex tried to reclaim his investments in court. I added the hashtag number gold digger plot twist. I posted it, put my phone on charge, and went to make boxed mac and cheese. The next morning, I opened the app and the notifications wouldn't stop. 100K views, 500K, 1.2 million. Comments like, "This is better than any true crime comedy on Netflix. Queen of vintage and financial trolling. Thanks. Now I'm gonna ask grooms about their credit score, not their ring." Within 24 hours, I got a message from BuzzFeed editor Lola. "Can we do an interview for the column It's a Vibe?" Then the Girls Gotta Eat podcast. "Marissa, can you come to the Soho studio? Let's talk about spotting red flags on the first date." After that, emails from The Cut and a request from Good Morning America for a short segment on financial traps in marriages of convenience. I checked Twitter and saw memes. A photo of my bank statement with $17, and the caption, "What kind of gold digger? Rich on the inside." A gif of Alec Baldwin slamming a door. When he found out the bride rented her Celine. Under the hashtag number budget bride boss, people made duets showing how to pair a TJ Maxx dress with Costco champagne to throw gold diggers off their game. Suddenly, I became an icon of modesty and irony. In my DMs, hundreds of messages. "You saved me. I was about to sign a prenup where he wanted a share of my house. I'm studying at community college, thought I should hide my debts on dates. Now I'm proud. Let them know the reality. Film a series, $30 outfit that looks like $3,000. I recorded a couple more videos. Top 5 signs of a gold digger. How to flirt in vintage Versace without breaking the bank. Each one got 500,000 views. My account grew to 400K followers in 2 weeks, and a jewelry rental brand offered me a free subscription for the real-life content. You know what's the best part? Not the likes, not the collab offers, but the feeling of freedom. I told my truth myself before anyone could twist it. No filters, no rented reputation. Just me, an old tripod, and a story about minus $17 that brought me a whole new kind of value: the ability to laugh at myself louder than anyone tries to laugh at me. When the whole story with Alex was behind me, I realized it was time to start living for real. No illusions, no other people's expectations, and most importantly, no masks. That's how the idea for my blog was born: Real Money, Real Talk, a place where I talk about finances honestly, simply, and without any pretension, especially for women tired of empty promises and loud words. A couple of months after launching the blog, I met Thomas, a history teacher from Brooklyn. He doesn't wear a Rolex and doesn't even know the difference between a Casio and an Apple Watch. But that didn't matter to me at all. The first thing he asked wasn't, "What do you invest in?" or "What's your credit score?" He simply asked, "How do you feel?" And that was a real relief. With Thomas, I learned to appreciate simple joys: walks in Prospect Park, Sunday breakfasts in little cafes, talks until dawn about books and dreams. I realized that true value isn't the numbers in your bank account, but the feeling that you are accepted as you are without pretending. Today, I keep running my blog, helping women learn how to manage their money without fear or stress, and most importantly, living my life honestly, simply, and full of love. Because in the end, that's what real success is all about. He left because he didn't find gold, and I stayed because I'm not afraid to be real. You know how many times I've heard from friends and acquaintances, "You should have pretended, adjusted yourself, made it seem like you had everything he wanted." But I always answered, "I'm not for sale. That doesn't mean I'm perfect. Number. It means I value myself. And for me, being honest with myself and with others is what matters most. Never decorate yourself to meet others' expectations. Decorate yourself with the truth, your dreams, your fears, your mistakes, and your victories. Because those who chase money rarely value people. Money comes and goes, but respect and dignity remain forever. Being poor is temporary. Being cruel is forever. And I choose to be better. My worth is not in a bank account. My worth is in not letting myself be bought. And if this story teaches you anything, let it be this one thing. Real strength is in staying true to yourself, even when everyone around is ready to sell out for sparkle and gold. Thank you for listening. And remember, you deserve love and respect not for what you have, but for who you are.